Hello, everyone, and welcome back to True Crime with Kendall Rae. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you are new to the show, then welcome. So happy to have you too. And make sure to click subscribe so you never miss an upload from me. And guys, I just got to say right out the gate here that this episode is going to be really tough to get through. And that's mainly because I'm going to be telling you about a victim who was only 17 years old and just had so much going for her. I mean, she was kind, smart, athletic, artistic. I mean, you name it. She was a stellar human being. Her name is Angelina Gonzales, and her life was stolen from her in such a brutal, unnecessary, and unimaginable way. Cases like this, when the victim is so young, are especially heart-wrenching. I mean, all murders are, of course, but especially when someone is at the age where they are just getting started in life and have an amazing future ahead of them. And that is all just ripped away in an instant and for literally zero reason. Now, Angelina's case is still very much developing. She was murdered just a couple of days before Christmas of 2024. But you know, normally I will wait a little bit longer to cover a case until there is more information available and we're further along in the process towards justice. But her family has expressed that they're really trying to get her name and her story out there and raise awareness about domestic violence, especially in younger relationships. They have already done an amazing job at trying to keep her legacy alive. And I just want to further that effort. And like I said, Angelina's case really brings up a lot of conversation around domestic violence in today's youth, which is something I know is a big topic right now. I mean, all the time, but I've seen a lot of talk about it recently because of the show Adolescence on Netflix, which is excellent, very scary, but very eye-opening, especially as a parent or to other young people out there as well. So towards the end of the episode, I want to have more of a conversation around that, and I'm going to be sharing some information and resources with you all, which I think you can never do enough. And as I always have to say when we're talking about a case that is still active, everyone that I'm speaking about today is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. My audience, all of you, are always so amazing when it comes to showing families in these situations support in so many different ways. And I just off the bat wanted to share their GoFundMe with you. So if you're interested in showing them your support as well, they do have this GoFundMe. It will be linked in the show notes and in the description of this episode. And I'm also going to be reaching out to them from my foundation to try and offer them a Hope Grant if they are interested. And of course, as always, I completely understand if you can't make a donation right now. I think just doing something as little as leaving a positive comment for their family, words of encouragement and support just go a long way in case they do end up seeing this episode and see the feedback. Angelina's death has been completely devastating for her family, as you can imagine, and also for her community. And I'm so hopeful that our community can come together and lift them up. But before I get into telling you about Angelina's case today, I do need to take a moment to thank our lovely sponsor, Rocket Money, who has done so much to support this show and to support the Higher Hope Foundation. Today's episode is brought to you by one of my personal favorite apps, and it is Rocket Money. And before I started using it, I'm embarrassed to say how many subscriptions that I had that I either just forgot about, like free trials I started and forgot, or subscriptions that I realized I wasn't even using. I was wasting so much money. It's a personal finance app that allows you to manage your subscriptions, lower your bills, make a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. And in my opinion, one of the best things about Rocket Money is how easy it is to use. I love that they make a list of all your subscriptions so that you can keep track of everything in one easy to find place, and then you can quickly find unwanted subscriptions and get rid of them with just a few taps. And what's even cooler is Rocket Money can help you to try and get a refund on some of those subscriptions that you were wasting money on. I've been using Rocket Money for the last couple of years, and I honestly wish I started earlier because it annoys me thinking about how much money we were wasting. Rocket Money has helped its members save up to $740 a year when you use all of the app's premium features, and they've helped members save over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. And I always just have to say that one of the best things about Rocket Money is that they deal with customer service for you, because I dread it. I get major phone anxiety. I don't want to deal with it. So if someone is going to help me do it or just do it for me, I'm all in. So if you want to save money too and take control of your finances, just go to rocketmoney.com/Kendall to get started for free. And it really is thanks to sponsors like Rocket Money that my foundation, Higher Hope, is able to offer grants to families like Angelina's. So really, really appreciate it. And if you would like to support our sponsor, it really helps the show and helps Higher Hope. But with all that being said, I wanted to go ahead and start telling you about Angelina, who should still be here today. Angelina Camelia Gonzales, or Angel, as she was called by her loved ones, was born on January 7th, 2007, and she was living in Azusa, California with her mom, Letitia, and her stepdad, Robert. She also had an older brother, Ruben, and he says that Angel was bubbly, funny, always cracking jokes, and that she went into everything she did in life with determination. She was a senior at Azusa High School, and that is where many people got to witness as she proudly cheered on her fellow classmates. Cheerleading was definitely a big part of her identity, and it was just one of the many things that she loved participating in, but it wasn't just cheer. This is super cool, but she had actually recently joined the wrestling team and even won in her first match, which just goes to show you that she really was so determined and would really just work as hard as she could at anything that she tried. And also, as I mentioned, she was artistic and she was incredibly talented when it came to her art. In 2024, she actually won first place at the 31st District Congressional Art Competition, as well as the Judge's Choice Award in 2022, which meant that her art would be displayed at the U.S. Capitol. And just take a look at her art. I mean, wow, she was definitely deserving of all of that. Angel was someone who had a lot of options for her future, and everyone in her life was really excited to see what path she was going to take. And one thing that she was really looking forward to was her 18th birthday. And I'm sure if you are older than 18, you probably remember your 18th birthday and how excited you were to be officially an adult. I mean, it's such an exciting time in our lives. But there was really nothing to celebrate on January 7th of 2025 because 2.5 weeks prior, on December 20th, her life was senselessly taken from her. That evening, Angel had gone to a cheerleading banquet with her friends and other members of her squad. And from what's been reported, nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. However, later that night, her stepdad, Robert, realized that she never came home, and that was very unusual because Angel always came home. She was very responsible. And so Robert did what a lot of parents would do, and he checked her location on his phone. And I believe it was just the regular iPhone location sharing feature that he used, and he saw that she was actually somewhere familiar. She was at her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Rodriguez's house. Now, if any of you watched my episode from just a couple weeks back on Savannah Copeland, you're probably already seeing some similarities here. They were both teenage girls, both cheerleaders, and both had their location traced by a family member. And not only that, but both of them lost their lives due to fatal stab wounds, which, in my opinion, is one of the most brutal and personal, just evil ways that you can end someone's life. And how this all played out for her family is just devastating beyond words, because when Robert drove over to Daniel's house, he actually just pulled up to the crime scene. And officers had already swarmed the area, and he was told he wasn't allowed to go any closer. Instead, he and Angel's mom were asked to come into the station, where they were both told the earth-shattering news.
I came home and she wasn't in her bed.
When Angelina's stepfather noticed her phone's location was at her ex-boyfriend's house Friday, he drove there, and police tape was up when he arrived.
They wouldn't let me enter the crime scene. And I was trying to explain to them that my daughter's there, I'm trying to get my daughter.
He said officers then told him to go to the sheriff's station.
When we got there, they took my wife in to ask her some questions, and basically that's when they told us that she didn't make it and what happened to her.
Police had been called to the scene at 10 p.m. that night after a witness heard screaming, only to run outside and find Angel on the ground, bleeding from multiple stab wounds that she had sustained. And her attacker, who was very quickly believed to be Daniel Rodriguez, fled in his car. However, thankfully, they were able to find him and arrest him just the following day. Now, at first, it was only reported that her killer was an acquaintance, but Angel's family quickly clarified and identified him as her ex-boyfriend, someone who they say they had warned her to stay away from. Now, we don't actually have a lot of explicit details about their relationship, but considering how it ended, I think we can all reasonably conclude that it was not a healthy one by any means. And one thing that I've heard her loved ones say is that Angel was such a kind person. She was that type of person who always tried to see the good in people, even people like Daniel.
Well, a 17-year-old Azusa High School cheerleader stabbed to death. The man accused in her murder, an 18-year-old who she reportedly had a relationship with. KCAL's Jasmine Beal spoke with her family, and they say they warned her to stay away from him.
Pictures of Angelina Gonzales show a smiling 17-year-old who loved cheerleading, music, cooking, and had just joined the wrestling team a few months ago.
She was just real determined, put her heart into everything.
Her older brother, Ruben Torres, says his sister had gone to a cheerleading banquet Friday night and never came home.
It was normal, like party with the school. She was with all her friends.
The LA County Sheriff's Department says Gonzales was stabbed to death Friday around 10 p.m. on North Soldano Avenue in Azusa by an 18-year-old man whom they described as an acquaintance of the victim. He was taken into custody. Her family says her ex-boyfriend had picked her up from the event that night.
The police have yet to release every details. They showed us the video of her getting in his car.
One witness says she heard screaming and ran out to see Gonzales lying face down on the sidewalk and a young man running away.
He ran out with no shirt on, got in his car, backed it up, almost hit the car behind him. I think they just said they were arguing.
Albert Fuentes, her wrestling coach, brought flowers Monday to a small memorial for her on that sidewalk.
She just had her first competition, she competed for the first time and she got her first win. She was so excited and so proud.
No parent should bury their child.
Her stepfather, Robert Caraballo, says he tried his best to protect his daughter from that relationship and doesn't want this to happen to anybody else.
I'm doing this because I want my daughter to be recognized, like her legacy to be recognized, and also for other teens that might be going through the same thing.
She was just so loving, like even in people like him, she tried to see the good in people.
And just in general, there's a very limited amount of information available on this case at this point in time, and that is why I normally don't cover cases this early on, but I decided to go ahead and move forward with it after hearing how her family really wants to keep her legacy alive and raise awareness so that other teens don't have this happen to them. So I know that it's very different from other cases I cover typically because we don't have a whole lot of information here, but I felt like Angel was such a wonderful human that it would be a great opportunity to not only share her story, but to also just tell you more about her, because everyone should have the opportunity to know who Angel was. And it's important to be reminded that life is incredibly precious. You never know when your last day with someone could be. And it sounds cliche, but you just can't take life for granted.
As a father to her, she was amazing. You know, we had a very close bond, very good relationship.
Her stepfather and brother at a loss for words over how the 17-year-old was tragically killed. Angelina was stabbed to death last Friday while at her ex-boyfriend's house after leaving a cheer banquet.
He was toxic and she dumped him. I'm guessing like they were in his house arguing and I guess she ran out.
I myself and my wife, we want to honor her legacy and make sure she's not forgotten.
It's important to tell your loved ones, your siblings, even found family, like they don't even need to be blood related. Tell them you love them. Like, just be with them because you just never know when stuff like this happens.
Now, you heard her brother Ruben start to mention this, but the motive in Angel's death is most likely related to the fact that she had dumped him. That being said, an official motive has not been released, but I think when we look at the circumstances here, that's what makes the most sense. Not that any of this ever makes sense, but you know what I mean. And I'm sure you can tell if you are watching this episode instead of listening to the podcast version of it that I don't even have a photo of Daniel at this point, which is something, I normally like to include. And I'm not sure why one hasn't been released, because normally they don't release photos when the perpetrator is a minor still, but Daniel was 18 when this happened. So I have no idea why there's no photos. I couldn't even find a booking photo from his arrest. And of course, that doesn't change the circumstances here at all. I just know people are going to wonder why I've not included a photo of him, and that's just because at this point in time, there isn't one available. It is possible that a photo will be released between the day that I'm recording this and the day that it is uploaded. So if that is the case, I will go ahead and include one. And I'm assuming that at some point in time, there will be a photo of him out there. And I hope that there is, because Everyone should be able to see this guy, look at his face, and know what he did. But anyway, Daniel was officially charged with murder on Christmas Eve, December 24th. And unless he posts his whopping $2.02 million bail, he will continue to sit his sorry ass at the men's central jail in LA County. And he faces up to 26 years in prison if convicted. And he's currently pleading not guilty to his charges. And in my opinion, 26 years is not enough. And that's only if he actually gets the 26 years. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. A court date was scheduled for February 26, 2025 to determine if there was enough information to move forward with a trial against Daniel. And to my knowledge, things are proceeding forward. And I really don't see any reason why they wouldn't. So that same day, her loved ones and supporters gathered outside the Pomona Superior Courthouse to demand accountability for Angel's murder. And if there's one thing I'm certain of, it's that these efforts are not going to stop until justice is served. And I really do say that with confidence because the rally for justice from this family and their community is something that's been so beautiful to see. And it really started from the very beginning, right after Angel was killed. That GoFundMe I told you about earlier was started to help raise money to cover the cost of her funeral, and they've since raised over $33,000. Angel has since been laid to rest, with her funeral taking place on January 20th, 2025, where hundreds of people came together to mourn this gut-wrenching loss. And even though the service already happened, I do want to encourage you guys, if you're able, to still consider supporting their GoFundMe, because the financial toll that violent crime takes on a family is impossible to prepare for. And just focusing on paying for basic needs on top of fighting for justice is something that they shouldn't even have to worry about. And like I said earlier, my team and I are going to be reaching out to try and get them a HOPE grant. And I really hope that we're able to get in contact. I'm sure we will. And hopefully that will be helpful to them as well. One of the things that we're able to do with the HOPE grant is we can actually reimburse for past expenses, including something like a funeral. We can also pay off existing invoices for anything related to the crime. And by doing this, it helps put money back into the hands of the family so that they can use it for other things they may need. I also wanted to highlight something else support-wise that took place because I think it's a really great example of how this community came together. So when they were still raising money for the funeral, they ended up hosting a car wash/bake sale event. And when I say the community of Azusa showed up, I mean they showed up. There was a long line of cars down the street and around the block waiting to be washed, and hundreds of people came to buy food and show this family that they were there for them.
An outpouring of love today in Azusa after a brutal crime. The community comes out in force to support the family of a teenager allegedly killed by her ex-boyfriend. Fox 11's Laura Diaz is live for us. Laura?
Susan, on this holiday weekend, we have a community in mourning, but friends and family of Angelina, they got to their feet today to show support for the victim.
It's just a very, very sad loss. It's going to devastate all of us.
It's been a little over a week since 17-year-old cheerleader Angelina Gonzales was fatally stabbed after a cheerleading banquet. Investigators say the suspect, her estranged boyfriend, picked her up after the banquet December 20th and took her to his Azusa home where he stabbed her. The girl with the big brown eyes died of her wounds later at the hospital. Saturday, hundreds of people gathered in Angelina's honor not far from her neighborhood. There were anguished hugs. There was a car wash and food, and hopefully some comfort too.
I expected a big turnout, but not this big, and I know why, because she was so loving and so caring.
This is Angel's way. This is her putting this together. This is something she would do if she was here. Yeah. She would be doing the same exact thing for someone else.
The huge fundraiser included many of Angelina's classmates, fellow student athletes from sports teams. Bikers rolled in too. Angelina's cheerleading coach praised Angelina and said the community celebrated her beautiful life.
Shows that we all loved and cared about her, and definitely that we're here to support the family.
I'm always really grateful when I'm able to cover cases when there is so much community support, because not every family gets that. It obviously doesn't take away from what happened at all, but it really does feel like a glimmer of hope. I know from families I've worked with directly how important it is and how much it really pulls them through. So the fact that this family has so many people rallying alongside them, and not just in their community, but across the country as well. And I hope that number grows by sharing her case with all of you. There really is no such thing as too much support. And in fact, the next court date is actually set for April 18th. And I know that they would love as much support from all of you as possible. So there is a Justice for Angel Instagram account that has been posting updates. So I'm going to go ahead and link that in the show notes in case you are in the area and maybe want to learn more about how you can show up for them. You can also follow the account to get updates on the case and let this family know that you're supporting their efforts to get justice. And I love when you guys do that. I love when I'm able to share a social media page or account and tons of you go that extra mile to just show that support, because that's another thing I've heard from families I've worked with directly, that is just so huge to feel like they have all these people that they don't even know that are standing behind them. And even just recently when we covered Barron's case, Barron Lee, he was so grateful and thankful to all of you who took the moment to follow him on Instagram and support everything that he is trying to do. And I also thought this was super cool. So among Angel's many supporters is Senator Susan Rubio of the 22nd State District of California. The California State Senate adjourned in memory of Angel, and Senator Rubio gave a really beautiful and empowering speech. So I wanted to go ahead and play that for you here.
Today I rise to adjourn in the memory of Angelina Gonzales, who tragically passed away last month at the age of 17. Angelina was a bright light in the lives of all who knew her, a passionate cheerleader and student at Azusa High School. She brought energy, joy, and a spirit to all events she attended. But that joy and that spirit was cut short when she was killed by her boyfriend, and her future was robbed. Angelina will never walk down the aisle. She will never grow old. She will never fulfill all her dreams. It is unfortunate that domestic violence continues to rob us of incredible people and torture others. Of course, there were signs, but as domestic violence goes in our society, bystanders stay silent until it's too late. Recently, Angelina had taken on a new challenge by joining the school's wrestling team, embodying her fearless nature and determination to succeed in everything she set her mind to. Angelina, she had generosity, she was selfless. She was always the first to lend a hand or offer a kind word, and her radiant smile had always lit up a room. Angelina loved her family, friends, and teammates fearlessly, and her kindness left a lasting mark on everyone she met. Beyond her achievements, Angelina's true legacy lies in the love she gave so freely. She lived her life with a heart full of compassion, a soul full of dreams, and an unwavering dedication to lifting others up. Angelina, your spirit will live on in the hearts of all who knew you. And though our time with you is short, your impact will remain eternal. Angelina has reignited my fire to continue to fight abusers in the fight to keep families safe in domestic violence situations. Once again, she was a beautiful soul, and she will never be forgotten. She is survived by her loving parents, siblings, grandparents, and a wide circle of friends and classmates who will forever cherish her memory. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in adjourning in the memory of Angelina Gonzales. Thank you.
I thought that was really powerful and something that we don't often see from our representatives. So I think for me personally, it helped to hear, more about Angel from Susan and get an even more clear understanding of who she was. Angel clearly made such an impact in her 17 years of life. And the fact that she is not here today, it's hard to even find the words. It's so wrong. It's so unfair. It's gut-wrenching. And at the very least, it shouldn't ever happen to anyone else, let alone a child. But we know that, unfortunately, it will. But that's why it's so important to talk about the ways that we can try and prevent cases like this from happening as much as possible. I played a clip earlier where Robert said that he's speaking out because he wants Angel to be recognized and to help others who might be going through the same thing. And that's why today I wanted to spend the last portion of this episode talking about domestic violence and also provide some resources, because it's something that you can really never get enough information about. Even if you are lucky enough to be in a stable, healthy relationship where you don't feel like you're in danger, it's so important that we understand that anyone around us, anyone in our lives could be in a situation like this at any time. And I think it's also something that is so important for parents to learn as much as they can about, because, you know, my daughter, she's only 2.5, and I am so scared for her future just in the world that we live in, especially after watching Adolescence. I really do recommend it. It's a great show and it sparks so many great conversations. So if you're a parent, it's, I think, an excellent watch. Very hard to watch, but very important. And I also want to encourage any survivors out there who may be watching, if you're willing to share, to even maybe drop a comment below and offer any advice or encouragement you have for anyone out there who could be going through a situation like this right now. And I know so many of you are. I mean, I see comments from so many of you who are in situations, in relationships where you don't know how to get out, or you have recently got out and you're dealing with the aftermath of that. And my heart truly goes out to you, because it is so common, is so horrific. And I feel very, very thankful that I have never experienced it myself. But yeah, it's something that I'm happy I'm seeing more conversation and discussion about it than I used to, but it's something I think needs to be talked about even more, because I don't think many people realize just how prevalent it is in our society. I hate that anyone has to experience domestic violence. I hate that any of you in my audience have been in an abusive relationship at any point or are right now. And to those of you who were in a violent relationship and you were able to get out of it, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. And also to those who are actively trying to get out of a situation that you know is not good for you, not safe for you, I'm proud of you for trying to take the steps or even thinking about how to get out. But I understand that it's not that easy. You know, that's something that I think is a major misconception in society is, why don't you just leave? Because it can be very, very difficult to leave for so many different reasons. You know, she was so young. Her parents really did everything that they could, as far as I know, to prevent this from happening. And sometimes it is out of our control. And she did leave him. I mean, we don't know the details of the relationship or what led up to that night. But, you know, I think it's just something that parents need to be even more aware of. And that's why I'm so proud of Angel's parents for trying to spread awareness about the case to potentially, you know, educate other parents and educate other younger people about what could happen. Now, my audience, for the most part, are women, which I love that. And so I wanted to share that data shows that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence, as will 1 in 9 men. And that is also something I don't think we speak about enough in society, is that men do experience domestic violence as well. And 1 out of 9 men is a pretty shocking number. The statistics in general around domestic violence are very shocking. Around just violence in general are very shocking and upsetting and scary. But the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey reported that 35% of women and 28.5% of men have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And if we take a look at just teens, nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience dating abuse from their partner. 1 in 3 girls also report being the victim of physical, emotional, and or verbal abuse from someone that they've dated. Then there's the statistic that 1 in 10 high school students say they have been purposefully hit, slapped, or physically hurt by a boyfriend or girlfriend. And that's just those who have reported it, which I think is so important to remember and is something that is often forgot about when we're talking about statistics, because the data is incredibly alarming as it is, but it only represents the reported cases. So those numbers have to be so much higher. And there are countless reasons why someone wouldn't report their abuse, including the very real fear that they may be killed as a result. And then I think there's also a lot of people who don't report their abuse because they don't recognize that what is happening to them is actually abuse. And in my opinion, I think that's especially true in teenage relationships. And I know most people recognize that physical abuse is abuse, but that's just one form. There's emotional and psychological abuse, which can include but isn't limited to name-calling, bullying, shaming, intentionally embarrassing, and constant monitoring. There's financial abuse. Of course, there's sexual abuse, which is when one partner forces their partner to engage in a sexual act against or without their consent. Of course, there's also stalking, which can include one partner following or harassing the other partner in a way that causes them reasonable fear for their safety or well-being. And I'm sure it's no surprise, but social media can also perpetuate that abuse. And I think that's especially true when it comes to younger people. And that's another really important topic that adolescence really highlights. And this is also definitely an area where I think it might be more difficult for someone who's younger to identify that these behaviors aren't healthy. And I know I also have a lot of younger viewers out there, so I wanted to share what these behaviors look like. And to clarify, these don't just apply to young people. So it can look like telling you who you can and can't be friends with on social media, monitoring your social media, also your email and your text messages, stealing or forcing you to give them your passwords or let them see your device, hold your device, look through your device, sending you mean messages either directly or anonymously. And this is a big one, convincing you to sext or to send pictures of yourself when you don't want to by using threats, coercion, force, or guilt. And I don't want to brush past the guilt because I think that is one of the biggest factors when it comes to this. And we've all experienced what guilt feels like, right? Like it's one of the most difficult things to overcome and to process. It's one of the things I've spent probably the most time in therapy learning how to deal with the feelings of guilt that someone else can put upon you. And in teen relationships, and of course, even in adult relationships, guilt can really be used by the abuser to get the victim to comply with whatever it is they want them to do. And that could be something like having sex with them or sending explicit photos or convincing you to isolate from your friends and family, to not spend time with certain people. I mean, there's so many different examples of how this can be applied by an abuser. And another big form of abuse that I don't think is talked about enough, I know we talk about it a lot on this show because it happens in so many cases, but that's isolation. By separating their victim from others, the abuser can create this sense of dependency, like they are the only person that you have. And that's how they want it because they want to have the ultimate power over you and don't want you to be influenced by others or convinced by others that you are in a bad situation. So isolating you from those you love is a huge tactic we see all the time in these cases and in just domestic violence cases across the board. So you want to watch out for signs of it, and that can include not letting you see your friends and family, or getting annoyed and upset when you want to spend time with others, or even something as small as texting others, wanting to live together very early on in the relationship, wanting to move away from your support system, making you feel guilty, there's that word again, for spending time with others, telling you that your friends and family don't understand your relationship, and being overly concerned with what your friends and family say to you. And all of this really only scratches the surface because abuse can look and sound like tons of different things depending on the relationship. It's different from relationship to relationship. But I genuinely believe that knowing what it can look like and sound like is a very important step in recognizing when you or someone you love is experiencing it. And so another thing I want to talk about today, and I really appreciate you guys who have stuck around and are taking the time to listen to this because I know it's not easy and it's very different from typical true crime content. I know a lot of people just want to hear the details of the mystery and the crime, and there's not a lot of that in this case, but I think this case sparks such an interesting and important conversation that doesn't get had enough, that I just wanted to take the time to do that today. So to all of you who are still out there listening, truly, I thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about prevention. And educating people about the signs of abuse is a huge part of that. this is what it looks like. So these are behaviors to not engage in. And I also think it's important that we educate young people about what a healthy relationship looks like. And I see this theme in a lot of the cases that I cover, but I think conflict resolution is massively ignored, and also rejection. Can you imagine what it would look like if we spent more time as a society helping younger people understand how to handle rejection? And obviously, that can be taught at later stages of life as well. And I wanted to go ahead and link an article I found from the Child Mind Institute titled How to Help Kids Deal with Rejection, because I think it's a very useful resource. And then I'm also going to link a PDF that goes over tools for healthy communication and conflict resolution. And one thing that I especially can't say enough is that if someone comes to you and tells you what is going on, believe them. Try your best to be someone that they can feel comfortable confiding in, and help them try to come up with a safe way to get away from their abuser, which is, in most cases, harder than it sounds. The most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when they are trying to leave. And so I really want to emphasize that coming up with a plan that ensures their safety is very, very important. But it's something that a lot of us don't know how to do. And I wish I could lay out a roadmap, but because every relationship is so different and every situation is going to be a case-by-case situation, so I really don't feel like I can comfortably or responsibly provide a generalized exit route, but I know that there are countless amazing resources online. I'm going to link the National Domestic Violence Hotline in the show notes of this episode, as well as the number for the Teen Dating Abuse Hotline. And I really recommend that you actually take the extra step to save these numbers into your device, because you never know when they could come in handy. And I also just wanted to give a little shout out to an organization that I love. It's called the Crisis Text Line. That is definitely a resource to keep in the notes of your phone, or just to know how to access easily, because they offer a huge variety of services and can really help in so many different situations, and they are easily accessible. And I don't think enough people know about them. The work that they do is incredible. I've spoken to some of the people that work in the organization, and I just really can't say enough good things about them. And also the Teen Dating Violence website has great resources as well, so you'll find that linked below. And then I'm also going to link the Joyful Heart Foundation, which for any of my Law and Order SVU fans, this is the foundation that was started by Mariska Hargitay. And she is actually the actress who plays Olivia Benson. It's a national organization based in New York, and it has a mission of transforming society's response to sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse as well. They also seek to support survivors who are healing, and they want to end this kind of violence forever. And when I was looking into all these resources, I really did find so many great ones. So this is definitely not all of them that are available. It's always a great idea to do your own research and find resources that are better suited for you as well. And on that note, also, I would love if any of you could share any resources that you have found to be helpful or know someone else has found to be helpful in the comments. I'm sure that would be greatly appreciated by so many out there. Angel's case is a heartbreaking reminder of how an abusive relationship can end. And if I can help spread even an ounce of awareness and help one person, then I wanted to take the time to do that today. And also, if you guys didn't know, whenever I'm covering an active case like this, I will go back and have in the pinned comment any updates that have come out since recording, in case you ever want to go back and see any updates there. Of course, you can just do a Google search on the case yourself, but I will have something pinned there as well. And also, whenever I say in my episodes that I'm going to be reaching out to families to try and get them a grant from my foundation, I always, put an update there as well in the pinned comment or in the description box. Or you can just go to our Instagram page, which is higherhope.org, as well as our website, which is higherhope.org. And just while we're on that note, if you didn't know, we have recently released our 2024 impact report, which goes over how every single dollar was spent in 2024. Granted, we just launched the foundation in September, so it's less than we are planning to do this year or hoping to do this year. But if you're interested in actually seeing what we're doing, we're very transparent about where every single dollar is spent. So go ahead and check us out if you're interested. And I would really, really appreciate a follow on Instagram, because we are trying to reach as many people as possible and make the biggest impact we can. Again, I know that my approach to this case and covering this case is very different from my typical coverage on cases, but I really appreciate those of you who took the time to listen to Angel's story. And, you know, talking about all of this is really important also because it has become a huge mission for Angel's family. And I think it's a great way that we can honor her. And if anyone in Angel's family or her friends sees this episode, I want you to know my heart is so broken for you. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be in your shoes right now. And I think that you've already shown so much strength and perseverance at this point in time. I mean, we're only in like Q1 of 2025. This just happened at the very end of 2024. And there is so much that their family, her loved ones, and the community is doing already at this point. It's really amazing and sort of renews my faith in humanity. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. I will be back next week to discuss another case. And until then, please stay safe out there.